Well, I want to say welcome to the state of Pennsylvania for coming to Lebanon County today. We have Philip Ehring, grants manager at the governor's office, and we also have David Eichenthal from the Treasury Department. Gentlemen, welcome. And it's my understanding you're here to talk to us about, well, things that help us is small business, not small businesses, nonprofits, and governments, small governments, to take advantage of these grants. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. Why don't you start?
I'll start. Thank you for having us, Madam Commissioner. So, a little over a year ago, in January, the governor came in and he stood up several offices, one of which is my office, the Office of Critical Investments. And we were tasked with finding, following, and maximizing funds stemming from several pieces of federal legislation: the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the CHIPS Act. And our executive director, Brian Regley, sat down, read through these documents, and the thing that really struck him was in the Inflation Reduction Act. We'll call it the IRA. Sometimes people also call it IRA, because in that act, it appropriated billions and billions of dollars, a third of which is direct appropriation, so grants, things that folks are a little more familiar with but tend to be large and cumbersome. 2/3 of the appropriation as scored by the Congressional Budget Office are in the form of tax credits, and the novel mechanism in there is that these tax credits don't just apply to for-profit entities, to individuals, but non-for-profits, local governments, municipal authorities, school district, clergy can all receive the value of those tax credits for energy projects they do.
So churches, when you say clergy,
Yep.
churches as well.
Churches, mosques, synagogues, temples.
Okay.
So we have several examples already of churches that last year put solar panels on their roofs, on their administrative offices, some of which are now seeking this elective payment that David's going to talk about. But in going through this, we reached out to the US Treasury, said, hey, we think this is a really big deal. We think this could do a lot for Pennsylvanians to help lower long-term operating costs for those who have sustainability or environmental programs and projects. These are things we really want to see. We want this money to come into the Commonwealth. How can we be a partner in helping you do this? We met up with David, and we are now on a 7-city tour through the Commonwealth as part of a larger 150-city tour nationally.
Wow. And can you tell me, is there a time frame for this, or is it unlimited?
The tax credits are currently exist through 2032 by national appropriation.
Wow. So this is federal money coming through the state to local...
No.
It's better than that.
Oh, it's better than that.
So, first, Commissioner, thanks so much for hosting us here.
Oh, my pleasure.
We're really excited. So, it's actually federal money that comes directly to the local government or directly to a nonprofit. The Commonwealth has been doing a great job because, and really, people are asking me, Secretary Yellen has said, we're going to focus on 150 places that don't ordinarily hear about these things. We want to make sure that nobody's left out, nobody's left behind or forgotten. And people are saying, why are you starting in Pennsylvania? It's because of the good work that the governor's office has been doing on this and really leading among different states.
So you're the US Treasury.
I am the US Treasury.
Oh, I thought you were Pennsylvania Treasury.
No.
I had to make that clarification. Okay.
But the way that direct pay or elective pay can work is, the simplest way to describe it is, as Philip said, the Inflation Reduction Act has about 20 different tax credits in it. And it's working and encouraging lots of people in the private sector create EV manufacturing, battery manufacturing, all sorts of clean energy jobs. Tens, hundreds of billions of dollars in committed new investments. It's working for individuals, right? Because if you're a homeowner and you want to put solar up on your house, federal government's going to help pay.
I have solar, 15 years approximately.
That's fantastic.
Love it. I have I'm interrupting you, but I have an electric vehicle.
Fantastic.
All electric.
So all of your neighbors, this is great. All of your neighbors need to know about this who don't have solar on their house and don't have an EV yet. We know that the best way to persuade people to do it is to hear from their neighbors, hey, this is great, it works terrific. And now, because of the Inflation Reduction Act, individuals could get these tax credits too. But the reason we're here and talking to county officials like you, local government officials, we were with the mayor of Scranton, the mayor of Wilkes-Barre yesterday, we were in Reading at the Water Authority this morning, is local governments can get this benefit as well. So if the county were to decide, hey, Commissioner has a great idea, as we're thinking about our fleet going forward, we're going to buy some electric vehicles too. Federal government will help pay for that. And it's not a grant program, right? It's not a grant program where you have to sit down and fill out a lot of paper and maybe you win, maybe you lose. You do what you would do as an individual taxpayer. You file a tax return. You're a local government, you don't owe taxes. But if you file for a credit, for example, for a clean vehicle, the money comes back to the county.
Oh, you know, that's similar to what I did, because I was told in 10 years we could recoup our money. My mother had passed away and I got $40,000 out of the inheritance. I never saw that much money in my life, but my husband and I sat down and said, how can we best invest this? And when we looked that they were offering all these tax credits, both the federal and state government, we, thought, oh, well, we can get our money back in 10 years. We're going to live another 10 years. Let's do this. Then we won't have electric bills. So we overbuilt slightly. We have 40 panels. And I'm so glad, because now it takes care of my vehicle to charge as well. But the point is that we got paid back in 5 years. So we got our entire $40,000 between those tax credits and different things, saving the money and not paying the electric bill. We got all our money back in 5 years. It was an amazing story.
Well, and think about what that would mean for the county, for the city, for a church, as you said, or another nonprofit organization. Look, part of the reason I'm so enjoying going around talking to people like you is I used to be in local government.
Oh,
and
what did you do?
I was a city finance officer.
Okay.
And the hardest thing for me, right, was figuring out, I know that if I put this capital project in place, I know it's going to pay for itself over time, but I got to find the money to invest, right?
Yes, that's true.
So the federal government is now saying, we're going to help with that, right? Because if you, hypothetically, right, and the numbers are real, right? They're significant in terms of the numbers. Let's say your county or the city or any of the so-called applicable entities. It's a fancy way of saying city government, county government, state government, and nonprofits, along with some others. They said, you know what, we're going to do what a bunch of other places are doing. We're going to put solar in a little bit more than 40 panels, so because we want to be able to power all of the county's facilities and maybe provide some lower cost energy for community residents. So we're going to go find a place, we're going to go put in a solar farm that produces 2 megawatts.
County did that.
There you go.
I toured that years ago.
You put in a 2 megawatt solar farm. So here's how it works. Let's say that costs $2 million. It's hard to find $2 million, right? But if you do that, because of the way that direct pay works, if you're county government and you do that, and you meet the underlying requirements for something called the investment tax credit, it's probably what you got when you filed for tax credits for your own home, you get 6% of that back from the federal government. That's good, right? That's like $120,000. It gets better. If you use prevailing wage, and most county governments that do Davis-Bacon projects know how to do that.
Anything over a certain, it used to be 25,000. I don't know what the magic number is today.
And you use a registered apprenticeship program to provide some of the employment for the project. That 6% investment tax credit becomes a 30% investment tax credit.
Whoa, a third.
Gets better.
Oh.
If you
Tell me more.
meet the requirements for domestic content, it goes up to 40%.
Seriously.
If you build it,
I made them use USA-made panels. I have a video to show that. And the guy argued with me, but said, well, I said, well, you don't get the job if you don't use US-made panels. And he did.
well, so you get to 40%, then there's a provision that says if you put it in what's called under the law an energy community. Philip tells me 2/3 of Pennsylvania, 2/3 of the land mass of Pennsylvania qualify as an energy community because it's places that used to rely on coal mining or coal-fired power plants. It's also any place that used to be a brownfield site. It's another 10%. So all of a sudden that $2 million project that your county administrator, your county finance director was trying to figure out how to fund, the federal government will pick up $1 million of that cost.
Really?
And
We do have a Superfund side down on the east end of the county.
well, and as you know, right, you not only have a lower capital cost, but then you start to gain those recurring savings that you got as a property owner, and that's all to the good. By the way, it helps the climate,
Yes,
creates some jobs.
yes.
A lot of good things to go in this. This is a whole new thing, right? Because most people, when I talk to local government folks about this, they say, wait a minute, tax credits, I don't pay taxes. Why do I want to talk to you about tax
Because
credits?
it reduces your price.
Because under the Inflation Reduction Act, we now have this special provision that even though you don't pay taxes, you can get the benefit of these tax credits.
That is so amazing. Truly. I mean, it's like a gift.
Yeah, and it's working now. Again, it's, as Philip was saying, if you're a church, if you're a nonprofit, you can start to take advantage of it. Counties, cities are taking advantage of it. For electric vehicles, right? There's one of the credits where applicable entities, local governments, nonprofits can take advantage of it is for the commercial clean vehicle credit. If you buy a sedan, let's say you buy a sedan for a building inspector, you get $7,500 from the federal government if you do that, if it qualifies as a clean vehicle. I was in another city a couple of weeks ago where the school district had bought an electric school bus. If they did that now, under the Inflation Reduction Act direct pay provision, they get $40,000.
Wow.
If you put a charging station in like you did for the county, you get up to 30% tax credit on that. So all of this is designed, just like the Biden-Harris administration is trying to incentivize private sector to make these investments, you and your neighbors to make these sorts of investments. We're trying to incentivize the nonprofit sector and local government to do the same thing.
Well, now I do have a question.
Sure.
Two questions, actually. The first one, I didn't buy a charger. My husband happened to teach electronics, Cisco networking, telecommunications. He's brilliant. But anyhow, at our local career and technology center, so it had been an industrial electrician, etc. So he analyzed what we have, and he went into our existing box, electrical box in the basement, and he reconfigured. So I had a dedicated 25 amp, I think if I used the right term, switch, and I had to help dig the trough, and we put the wire inside of a plastic pipe and ran it to the fence. And on the fence then is our electric box. And then he did was flip the switch, and for, I think it was $149, he got a waterproof charger head and a thing to hang it on when I'm not using it. But it's 20 feet long. I plug it in the front of my vehicle, and it charges overnight, and I have had really good success with it. I'm very grateful and thankful, and it's just been wonderful. But we didn't even have to buy a charger. Now, granted, other people would have to hire an electrician to do the same thing. So my question to you is, would the cost of the electrician be reimbursable?
Yeah, so you have to look at the underlying tax credit provisions to see sort of what counts in terms of the basis of the investment. And I admit, I know less about the individual household credits than about sort of the investments that bigger entities are going to be making.
But you told me to think for my neighbors.
You should.
Yeah.
Well, and there's all sorts of information about this, both around direct pay, but also around individual consumer and household credits that's available on the IRS website, on the Treasury website. And I actually think sort of the best source is if you go to something called cleanenergy.gov.
Okay.
There are all sorts of informational resources there. And then when it comes, and again, one of the great things about being in Pennsylvania talking about this is, Philip, you should talk about all the things that the Commonwealth is looking to do to build off of this.
So, as you may be aware, the governor 2 weeks ago now released his energy policy. That's something we've been working through and working on since our office was created, working with colleagues in DEP, working in colleagues in Penvest. Are you familiar with Penvest?
Absolutely.
Okay, the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority.
Yes.
Make sure the I's go in the correct order. I've been fortunate enough to be out to COLA and see the wonderful work being done at the City of Lebanon Authority. But one of the first places that Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, has really internalized this is through the lending practices of Penvest. So Penvest is now looking at how does solar, how does micro hydro, how do anaerobic digesters, how does geothermal heat pumps, how can those things be incorporated into their understanding of where and when they lend to municipal authorities to help keep rates down for ratepayers, to just cover the long-term operating costs of the municipal authority facilities, its energy consumption. So that's really a thing that, as they're going through right now, their their educational roadshow, they're talking about, and they're saying, hey, you're coming into us, you're looking at upgrading your facility. If your roof is strong enough, why don't you put some solar panels? We can help cover that as part of our lending process. Penvest is the first one. Then we're looking at the Pennsylvania Energy Development Authority. It's an organization that's been on the books since Governor Thornburg. Hasn't done a whole lot in those 40 plus years, but by and large has what we need statutorily. Might have some tweaks through the legislature to give it certain other authority, as the legislature will agree. We'd like to nest a couple of programs there, and they all relate to the Loan Program Office at the US Department of Energy. So Loan Program Office has $400 billion in loan capacity. They're looking to do big transformational projects. They're looking to do things like fusion, and that is a big transformational project. But another big transformational project would also be $100 million to pull down into the Commonwealth to put solar panels on school districts to help them lower their long-term operating costs.
100 billion?
100 million, excuse
Million.
me.
Maybe
100
you
million.
said that and I missed that. Sorry.
100 million. So what the Commonwealth is looking at doing is building a program through PETA, Pennsylvania Energy Development Authority, whereby a school district could come to us or work through PETA and say, we have this $2 million solar array. We think it'll cover about 100% of our energy costs. We'd like to do it. We'd like to find a way to finance it. PETA will do its due diligence and say, yeah, we agree this is a viable project. Here is a 0% loan for that project.
Wow.
School district has the project installed, gets the green light from the utility, turns it on. The first year's savings, 90% of that, are recouped to PETA, to the Commonwealth, from the school district. So the school district gets to keep 10% of the savings. They'll accrue the SRECs, they'll accrue the Act 129, and then over the term of the loan, whether it's 15 years, 20 years, the school district pays that 90% into effectively what would be a state revolving loan fund. Commonwealth would also look to recoup the value of the tax credits, whether the school district claims them and pays them to the Commonwealth, or the Commonwealth is able to claim them directly for the IRS to roll into the state revolving loan fund to do on the next school district.
Question.
Yes.
What is the current payment for an SREC?
I do not know off the top of my head, and I believe based on some of the announcements that were made during the Governor's Energy Week 2 weeks ago, we are looking to work with the legislature to change those values.
Good, because I'm not worried about it personally. I purchased mine before Pennsylvania offered SRECs. Therefore, I was free to shop around. I was fortunate enough to get my contract with Baltimore, Maryland. So I'm getting really good rates to sell my excess energy back on the grid. And as long as I keep renewing that, and I just renewed it for another 10 years, I'm in really good shape. But at that time, when Pennsylvania did do it, their SRECs were really low compared to what I got, and I wondered if that has improved.
So that is certainly something my colleagues in the legislative office, in the policy office, are looking at, working with the state legislators into how do we update Pennsylvania's SRECs.
I would highly recommend that. So I don't know if you need an endorsement from somebody.
I will take it back to the Secretary of Leg Affairs and the Secretary of Policy and Planning, but it's certainly part of the governor's plans.
Yes.
So that's what we're hoping for solar for schools. There's also a bill in the House from Rep. Fiedler out of Philadelphia that's also called Solar for Schools, kind of inspired our thoughts, but we're looking and hoping to get some direct appropriations that can also help offset schools' costs as we go forward, that the state might be able to be more generous on top of the money where we're going to ultimately have to pay the loan back to LPO, so that's some of what the tax credit would help cover the cost of, but we're hopeful to have that up by the end of the year. And then we're also looking to nest. Pennsylvania has more river square footage per capita than any state in the union except Alaska, and more non-powered dams than any state in the union except North Carolina. We
have a bunch of generating electricity dams, though. I mean, it felt like I lived there. We had Drumore Township has one, and there's a nice warm water fishery in the winter, but we had a cabin on the river for many years. And at that point then I kind of looked at all of the dams up and down the Susquehanna River, but there are some that aren't on the Susquehanna River as well. So we have potential there to make electricity.
We really do. There are dams that were once electricity generating assets that for whatever reason were decommissioned over the years. So immediately the Commonwealth is looking at what dams does DEP own, does DCNR own, and are they viable, especially in some of the more modern hydroelectric technologies. You don't need to have as huge of turbines, you don't need to have as much head on those dams. Can we use that to be part of a dam remediation project?
Well, how about a place like Holtwood? I think they pump it up to an upper dam and then drop it to make electricity. Am I wrong?
I'm not immediately familiar with it.
I wondered if they could upgrade with this program.
So the upgrades under the tax credits get a little funny. There's this 80-20 rule. Effectively, the 80% of the asset's value has to be replaced, or the new parts have to represent at least 80% of the asset's value. They then qualify, as we understand it, for the IRA tax credit, although I think there is some request of Treasury for further guidance there. But what we're looking at is effectively, again, this through PETA, getting a couple of dams together, preferably that the Commonwealth owns, although we're trying to help other, whether it's municipal authority, whether it's a state, or not a state, excuse me, a county or a city that happens to own this.
Oh, the city has one.
Okay, one, is this viable? Is there enough flow that we could put one of these smaller head or small head or micro turbines on it? It's not going to be an enormous, it's not going to be megawatts of power, but it could be several hundred kilowatts of power that's base load.
Lebanon City actually has two, the High Bridge Reservoir, which is actually in Schuylkill County, and then they also have Stover's Dam. Maybe that's not big enough, I don't know.
But group them together because, again, the Loan Program Office at DOE is looking for kind of bigger $100 million project. So we're looking to gather and maybe have 5 or 6 that we can go back and say, these are the 5 or 6 we're going to do as some form of a group. We'd like to pull the money down to do that. here's who we think our off-takers are going to be, and again, use the tax credits to help facilitate those projects as the Commonwealth looks to move them forward. So I have colleagues working on that. Again, it's a novel, things that didn't pencil out 2 or 3 years ago suddenly become viable because of the tax credits.
This is exciting to me. I mean, I've always believed in renewable energy and have been a conservationist. I'm not, I believe in all kinds of different kinds of energy. It can be wind, solar, and quite frankly, coal is a part of my history as well. Had an old cook stove that was coal. I happen to have one now that's gas. So I use, at my house, I think I have 4 different kinds of energy: the solar, the gas, and I know there's, we have a little oil for a little heat up the garage quick thing, that kind of thing. So, but I'm really sold on the renewable energy because it's a great investment. And I commend you both for bringing this to Lebanon County. I feel very privileged. Thank you.
It's for everybody, everywhere. We're just trying to get the word out. And I mean, I'm sure as you know, Pennsylvania is an energy exporter. That's one of our great state history. We export right now about 30% of the energy we generate here. The governor certainly wants to see that continue, certainly wants to see that for economic reasons, industrial reasons, and as we go through this transition, environmental reasons. But at the end, whatever the 21st century energy complex looks like for the Commonwealth, we still want to be in that position of strength, making sure that we drive not just Pennsylvania development, but national development by being able to secure a supply of power that we're going to need.
Well, I do have 2 more questions, and I don't know who prefers to answer this. But the first one is, our building here is structurally sound. It was built in the old Amish regime, that it's simple lines but built to last. Granite, you'll find solid. This building is solid. But what is failing are our windows. You will go around, you will see frosted shut windows many places. And I am aware that there are windows with solar voltaic, whatever.
Photovoltaic?
Yes, on the outside. If we would replace all of our windows and put on the solar windows to tap into and provide energy, would that be something that would be, and we'd also be saving energy because these are failing and we're not losing heat, or air conditioning. Would that be something that would qualify? And then the second question is, I have been, I cut out an article a long time ago, and it showed, like, I call them solar trees in parking lots, where people can park under them, and it provides shelter from the sun.
Solar canopy, yep.
Yeah, solar canopy, and also like snow and stuff, where you go out, you don't have to clean your window on your car, and it was great. And at the same time, it provided electricity, and especially for charging cars. But, if, for instance, we had a row all across the first row back here and put those in, is that something that would qualify? So those are the 2 things you're making me think, is it eligible? And then we could have charging stations there for EV vehicles. And give me some guidance on this.
The solar canopy is definitely a thing we have seen done, and the solar windows I am not as familiar with, and I don't know that we made our usual disclaimer at the beginning. Neither of us are technically tax attorneys or tax professionals. The county should consult its standing as they think about doing this. But the short answer is, if it's an energy generating unit, in theory it should qualify for the ITC.
And
The investment tax credit, excuse me.
Okay, and you're giving 40%? Was that the top number?
So for the investment tax credit,
Yeah.
if you sort of stack everything up, you get to 50%. In some cases, there's also something called the low-income community bonus. That is competitive. It's an allocation process, and it's for very, very specific types of projects. That could even add another 10 to 20%.
Ooh.
But if you just sort of do prevailing wage and apprenticeships, meet the domestic content requirements, and meet the energy community requirement, you could get to 50% pretty quickly.
And your percentage again is?
Same thing as him.
Is that's combined?
So it's everything is coming through the federal government.
Okay.
Through the IRS, right?
Right.
This is a program through them that the Commonwealth is just viewing how does this change our decision making? How does this change programs we can think about offering because of the environment that the tax credit, right? The Commonwealth can be a recipient here. So DCNR, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, put some solar panels in on state parks last year. We are going
I saw those.
We are going to pursue.
Here in Lebanon County.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are going to pursue the value of the tax credit as we believe should be paid to the Commonwealth through the IRS. And that's money that Pennsylvania gets back to do some other project with.
That is great.
So it's all stages of government. How can this change our capital spending? How does this affect our capital spending plans?
Now, did you bring some brochures that you can
I
leave
have
here?
a
If somebody
brochure.
calls me and says,
Absolutely.
Joellen, can I get some more information?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And then let's see if I have this right, if I can find my note here. PA Energy Development Authority. I thought I wrote something down .gov. Oh, I wrote it on here. Cleanenergy.gov is the...
It's a great place for finding all the resources. If you're a nonprofit or a local government particularly interested in direct pay or elective pay, if you just go to irs.gov, they call it elective pay, you'll find all sorts of resources there as well.
Okay.
But again, the huge advantage that Pennsylvanians have is because of Philip's work, the work of the Shapiro administration, they are really sort of on the ground here trying to work with local governments across the Commonwealth.
Okay, well, I don't know what else you have to say, but I think this information is invaluable. I see lots of potential. I do have to convince others within the county that these are good things, but hopefully they'll get to view your comments and maybe they'll come to us and say, hey, can we try this? Because we have a lot of buildings, we really do. And the city, as I said, they can investigate if their dams would qualify to make electricity, hydroelectricity, etc. So, oh, there's so much potential here. Thank you.
Well, the one thing I ask in return, Commissioner, for me coming here is when you convince your colleagues, because I know you will, you got to let me know about it so we could know how the Inflation Reduction Act is working in Lebanon County.
Oh, got it. I will do that. I'm going to have to get your email or something or phone number.
Yes, I'll make sure you have
Okay.
that.
I have your name, but I didn't get that information. So thank you both. Did you have anything else to add? I don't want to cut you short.
No,
This is great.
This has been wonderful. Thank you for hosting us.
Oh, you're welcome. And Facebook has taken this to many more people. Hopefully they will take the time to look at this. And, we probably have 100 churches in Lebanon County. We're a very faith-oriented county. I don't know what other words to say. So we have a Jewish synagogue across the street. We have Protestant and Catholic and the
mosque.
The mosque, yes. Thank you. You said it right in the beginning, and I was struggling for the right term to call it. So we have all kinds of houses of worship, and hopefully they'll take a listen too. This would be great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.